This is the Illuminate Podcast, a Sandy Boy production. Each week on the Illuminate Podcast, the hosts will bring you insightful conversations and stories of people who are illuminating their own lives through their business, work, community, family, and world.
Hello and welcome to the Illuminate Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Emma Benner, and today I'm sharing episode 87 with Ivy Lawson. Ivy is the founder and owner of Logwood Company and Ivyees Everything Honey, where they produce honey-based health and beauty products, toothpaste, condiments, and their delicious honeys. Before starting her own company, Ivy spent nearly 2 decades in the corporate world before seeking out her true passions and becoming an entrepreneur. In this episode, Ivy talks about being unhappy in the corporate world and what ultimately led her to become an entrepreneur, how she felt when she did not receive the support from her family and friends when starting her company, the benefits of using honey in beauty products, hiring a team of employees as her business grew, and so much more. All right, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Ivy Lawson. Well, Ivy, I am so excited to welcome you to the Illuminate Podcast today. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted.
Yeah, so why don't we just kick it off and have you introduce yourself and share what you're all about?
Sure. So I'm Ivy Lawson. I founded this little company called Logwood Company. Our brand, we're known for our brand, which is Ivyees Everything Honey. And it simply means that we make all our great products for the hair, the skin. We make a line of toothpaste that's just disruptive right now, deodorant and some novelty. And we also sell the raw honey. We have about 4,000 hives globally. So we are really dedicated to sustainable business, saving the bees and working with beekeepers globally. So that's a little bit about me. I started out as an engineer, so I spent about 15 years working for big companies. IBM is the one that I left as a software developer. So this is a total pivot for me to become a beekeeper. But I've always loved bees, and when I found out that they were in trouble, I wanted to make a difference, and I just went for it.
Yeah, I loved reading about your story and researching for this interview and just learning about all that brought you to where you are now. It's I feel like it's a unique way to get to become an entrepreneur. Did you always kind of have an entrepreneurial spirit, or were you always business minded and things like that? Or was this kind of a really far turn in what you pictured?
Far turn. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I heard the term back in 1999. A gentleman who was an entrepreneur himself, he was a real estate developer. We had a conversation at dinner, and he said, "You know what, you sound like you should be an entrepreneur." And I was like, "Entrepreneur, what's that?" And he said, "You own your own business." And I was like, I couldn't think of one thing that I could do where I could do it by myself and really be successful. So because the only thing I knew up until then is math and science. And I was like, I could never do this. And I thought, well, maybe I could develop, later on in the years, I said, maybe I can develop an app to make life more convenient. So this was a real pivot for me. My parents, retired from, traditional companies. Everyone in my family, and I have a large family, have gone down the same path. I have one sister who started a restaurant. She has a restaurant business, very successful in Tennessee. So that's the only, I didn't know about business ownership at all. So everything I did was was learning from the grassroots up. I did not understand anything about entrepreneurship. No.
So what was the final straw that encouraged you to leave the corporate world and change your situation? Was it that you were unhappy in the corporate world, or was it more so that you kind of trying to fulfill this dream that you started to think about with the honey?
Right. So, I wanted the way to answer that question is yes, I was very unhappy. I now people tell me this, even people from IBM would tell me that you're a genius. And I never thought of myself as overly bright. I always just thought of myself of being able to solve particular problems really quickly. But I think the universe brought this together for me. I was unhappy and I decided I was going to sell my house. And about a month before I made the decision to sell what was the most expensive thing that would be keeping me, and I had to work to pay my mortgage. I started seeing bees fly out of my basement. I had a walkout basement, so I had to walk out the garage was drive underneath the house, so I had to walk out. And every morning I would see bees, and about a month before I decided to sell the house, our heating system shut down, and it turned out that we had infestation of bees in a heating room in the back room of my basement, and they were there for years because they made honey, at least 3 years. They're saying. And that gentleman I mentioned to you that talked to me about entrepreneurship, well, I was going through my home office cleaning it out, and I came across his card, and I called him, and we hadn't spoken in 7 years, and this has happened in 2008, and I met him in 1999, so it's 8 years, and he remembered me, and we had a conversation. The beginning of the conversation, he just said something really weird to me. He said, do you like honey? And I was like, well, honey, really? Why would you ask me that? I just had a bee infestation a month ago. And he said, oh, I have some beekeepers. We are both native. Our parents are both from Jamaica. And so he said, I have some beekeepers in Jamaica who wants to expand their hives. And they want to, they want me to give them money, but I don't want to do it. So if you're interested in this entrepreneurship thing, then you can certainly go to Jamaica and do a feasibility study for me. And so I said the universe brought it together because I had a bee infestation, was able to try raw honey, the real raw honey, and tasted so different from the squeezy thing. And then this dude is telling me about beekeepers. So I went and I never looked back. It's kind of a weird, when I tell that story, it was so surreal to me because I feel like I was just pushed towards it and I couldn't do anything else. I really wanted to do this. And so up until then, I used to make products with, just kind of make my own shea butter and mix up different oils to make products for my boys. I have 3 of them. And I always was tempted to add raw honey, and I just didn't know how to use it because it's sticky. And I was like, so I started researching, and everything just really kind of came together for me. I mean, so in such an amazing, phenomenal way that I can't even, it gives me chills when I talk about it. So yeah, I said the universe.
Yeah. And then the next part that I read about in your story was you made a big move to kind of pursue all of this, and you picked up your life and your family and moved to Jamaica to become a bee farmer. Is that when it turned into what it is now with Ivyees Everything Honey, or was there a big part of developing through that process?
So what I did was I was speaking to this person, I think it was in September, and I went to Jamaica on my own in October, November, and in December, he and I went. In January, I literally gave my resignation, and I said, okay, that's it, I'm going to move. And I moved the boys, 2 of my youngest boys because my oldest he started his freshman year in college in September. So I moved my 2 youngest kids to Jamaica in January. So I didn't have a lot of time to really think about it. In retrospect, probably would have put some more time into evaluating the situation because it was really difficult. The move was extreme. I didn't have the support of friends, family. They thought I had all gone, everyone thought I had gone crazy. And so they were just waiting to see, what transpired from this. And so my strength, just grew tremendously because it was so hard. Developing the products using raw honey, like I said, I had that in the back of my mind, but I hadn't done the scientific research to figure it out. And so I came back to the States in 2010, and I just enrolled in school and decided I was going to be a chemist, at least get a certification in chemistry and figure it out. And that's what I did. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
Can you talk more about the response from the people in your life about starting this business and kind of dropping the corporate world, making a big move and all of that? And yeah, just expand on that, because I think that's an important topic of how not everyone has this big support from the people in their life, and not everyone has people surrounding them that is really into the entrepreneurial and business side of things.
I'm going to tell you, Emma, I had absolutely, positively, and I can say this with no hesitation or reservations, no one supported me. Even people who I thought would, they would do it and just said, oh, well, girl, just go ahead and do what you feel like you need to do. But the support wasn't there. So it was really lonely in the beginning. And my family was probably the worst, because then they started really talking about, the fact that maybe she's really, mentally challenged. Maybe there's some mental illness going on, or maybe, there's a guy in Jamaica that she's going after, maybe, it was all kinds of theory behind it, nothing that was positive. And so I said to people, what kept me going was I sincerely had it was like I had an out-of-body experience. It was like I wasn't really controlling my decision making, and I knew I just had to push through. I lost a lot of weight. I mean, I'm not a heavy person to begin with, and when I came back to the U.S. in 2010, after 2 years in Jamaica, I was barely maybe 119 pounds, and that didn't look good on me. I mean, it was really skinny for me. And, I came back with nothing, with my two boys, just a suitcase that I had and nothing. I left everything that I had brought to Jamaica. And so it was difficult. I didn't even have a place to live. I mean, we had a, really, it was tough. I didn't have the support. And so, as I said before, what kept me going was I just had this kind of ambition that I just couldn't really, it just felt so good to do this business. And I felt like this is my destiny and this is what I want to do.
And what do they all think about it now with all the success that you've had?
Oh, it's funny, to see the transformation. And, people are funny about memory. And what I did do, Emma, is I chronicle a lot. I journaled a lot just to keep my sanity, just to say, okay, this is not you. This happened. It really happened. You're not making these things up. And so the way to answer your question, it's just full circle, and people are seeing the light. They're seeing what I had seen in the beginning. They're now, beginning to like really warm up to it and said, yeah, because my whole mindset was, if I continue to work for corporate America and I feel like I'm pretty bright, I'm just going to retire and, probably get sick or end up somewhere crazy. Or, I didn't feel fulfilled, but I want to build legacy wealth with, leave my boys better than how my parents left me. And I think that was one of the driving force. So now they're seeing, the picture. My friends are coming around, and, I don't want to be lonely, rich and lonely. So I am pretty much, receptive, and I know, who took some convincing and who just truly was just ignorant about the whole entrepreneurship journey, what I was doing, and they did the best they could to support, but they just didn't understand it. So I'm a little bit more welcoming to those people than the one who not only did they not believe in my dreams, but they presented obstacles, and I mean family members, presented obstacles that made it more difficult for me to, to get to where I wanted to go to. So, all right.
Yeah, I'm glad you've come around and shown that you were on the right track and you were finding what's right for you and what would make you happy, rather than being stuck in a career or lifestyle that you just it wasn't for you, you know? So what would you say to someone else that is stuck in a career or lifestyle that they don't love or even like and are just wanting to do something different and follow a dream?
Yeah, somebody said to me once, don't you shouldn't give up sure for unsure. And I think that's the biggest misnomer ever. I mean, because, sure is not really sure if you think about it. But I said people I've seen people, who are totally unhappy in their are now even now they're totally unhappy and they don't want to risk it. But I think the problem is just finding what you really enjoy doing and what you don't mind doing or suffering while you're doing it. It's just finding that thing. I was speaking to a friend of mine yesterday. She's a professor at the school I went to, and she's an English professor. And she said to me, "Oh my God, but you're so bright and oh my God, you're so resourceful." And she kept going on and on. She says, "I have no talent." And I was like, "Melissa, when I need an editor for my book, because you're an English professor, who you think I'm coming? You organize well." I remember when I was doing markets, like farmers markets, she would do all the organizing for me while I get the products together. I was like, that is a talent. That's something that you like to do. And she was like, "Oh my God, I didn't think about it like that." So I think that people don't really tap into what they really genuinely like to do. And if they do, they're not willing to take the risk to just say, "Let me go out and do it. Let me find my way," regardless of how hard it's going. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy. So, that's the encouragement I give.
So I got to get a broader look at this. Do you have, like, in your backyard a bunch of bees, or are you kind of contracting out somewhere else?
Okay, so I have boxes in Massachusetts, in and around the city, but nothing in my backyard because I live in a development complex. So they would be a little bit, they wouldn't be too receptive to seeing bees around, even though bees don't sting you unless you're bothering the queen. So I don't have, but I do classes and I do help local beekeeper. One of the things that U.S. beekeepers don't do is they don't set pollen traps, and people will say to me, "Oh, I eat local honey because local pollen is better for you," which is true, but very little pollen really actually get into the honey because the bees know to put it in a trap so they can feed their larvae and so on. So I actually sell local pollen. So that's what my bee box locally are for, is to get the pollen out of it and sell it. And how do you use it? You put it in water, eat it, put it in smoothie, and it builds your immune system and resistant to that seasonal allergies. So but no, I don't have boxes like just hanging around, but I don't mind. When I see a bee sign, I always like turn off. When I'm driving, I always like turn off to go and investigate to see what their hives look like and so on. So yeah, I love bees. and I'm afraid of birds. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
So where is the honey coming from for your products?
So yeah, so we have several, we source honey from several different countries. So we have the raw honey that we sell, it comes from my hives in Jamaica. And I, ship it in, and then we jar it in a little incubator that we work with in Rhode Island. And the honey that goes into the toothpaste, and really the honey doesn't really go into the toothpaste. We harness the antibacterial properties and the anti-inflammatory properties from the honey, and then we use it with other ingredients to make the toothpaste. And that's done in India. Manuka honey, which is the most researched honey for skin and for different types of ailment, comes from New Zealand. It's indigenous to that country. So we get our face care, skin care made in New Zealand with Manuka honey. And then the hair care, I use it. It's made in the United States, and we use my honey from Jamaica to do that, or local honey from Florida, to do that. So, yeah, and then the deodorant, local bee derivatives, the wax and so on goes in, the propolis and so on goes into, comes locally from, bee farmers in the U.S.
Yeah, so you have honey in all of your beauty products and deodorants and toothpaste and all that you talked about. What are the benefits of using honey in these products?
Great question. I love talking about it. So, it's been used in products for generations. We just got away from it because people, alter the properties of honey to make it nice and shiny so they can, aesthetically pleasing to the eyes when you buy it. But honey has enzymes, it has vitamin, all the vitamins that you can imagine. It has, all of these nutrient-rich properties that is your system loves. Okay, so even I tell people, when you compare honey to like sugar, it's still fructose and sucrose, but if you compare it to like cane sugar or whatever, your body really don't know how to process that well. It has to use up some energy to process it. But if you take a teaspoon of raw honey, your body knows exactly what to do with it. And you won't necessarily gain weight because it dissipates through your system, get to where your ailments are, or does its work, and then it passes through your system real easily. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's like second nature. And I think the reason why people don't use honey in more products is because it's very, very difficult to understand its properties and to, understand what other ingredients can work really best with the honey to give you the results that you're looking for. I think, it takes a bit of digging, a bit of researching to find the right ingredients that will make the honey work effectively. So I think that's why people don't, it's hard, it's not easy.
And then I've seen you mention other places that there's a big difference in the honey in the US and in Jamaica. Can you talk about that difference?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you're talking about, pollination from mango, papaya, sugarcane, coconut, all the tropicals, berries, sweet sop, sour sop. People know about these different tropical fruits from, researching about, the effect it has on cancer cell in your system. And so that's what my bees pollinate, those, hibiscus and those tropical flowers. Whereas in the US, you have berries, you have strawberries, but most, like where I live in the Northeast, clover and dandelion, and then you have some, buckwheat and some other, type of vegetation. So you can't really compare nutritionally the tropical honey to the local honey in my area anyway. And our bees are not industrialized bees, so they just really free range. They fly all over the island, mostly in the mountainous parishes, so they're not near fertilized, resorts or anything like that. They're way up in the Blue Mountains and across the mountain in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, and do their pollination. So they're getting some really nutrient-rich, blossoming to pollinate comparing to what's available here. Especially in New England, we have like 2 months of summer and that's it. And so the foraging is very limited comparing to a year-round pollination in the islands.
I just never would have crossed my mind thinking about that difference, I guess. So it's interesting to hear about that. And just, I guess I never would have thought there could be a difference in the honey that a bee produces based on a different location. So I'm interested in it.
Yeah. And I say that to people all the time. I said, this is how we sell it. People buy my honey for the taste, Emma. They're like, wait, oh my God, I've been using honey for the longest time, and this one tastes really good. And plus, I have customers who would write to me and say, you know what, I had a stomach issue and I started using your honey in my tea, or I just started taking a teaspoon of it a day and it just went away. So the healing properties that come from those rich island tropical vegetation is like second to none. It's the same thing with Manuka honey. I mean, they have research and studies that tell you, pinpoint different organs in your body, pancreas, all the area. But we just don't have it in Jamaica because it's a poor country, so we don't have that level of research. But yeah, I mean, pollination is important. So I say to people, when you're buying your honey, make sure you're not just getting floral, clover, dandelion. I mean, they're great, but they're not enriched like those pollination from the tropics or even the manuka tree, blossom. So yeah, it's there's a big difference. And that's how I sell the honey. People have been trying to sell Jamaican honey for so long and it just didn't resonate. And plus I do, a specialized monofloral pollination. So we put our box when the logwood tree, which is one of the honey that we sell, is blossoming across the island. And that honey is a high, light amber color honey. And it's just like so, oh my God, it's got such nutrient-rich properties in there. People love it. And then we also have the darker honey that's got the hibiscus pollination and all the other, darker, blossoming. And then the floral honey, we incorporate ginger into that and cream it with ginger. So I was the only one who was doing that, by the way. And I see people creeping up and they're learning how to do it. So there's a science behind it. So hopefully mine will be superior.
You've got a head start on everyone. So hopefully that is on your side. So talking about the business side of things, are you running this all by yourself or have you brought on employees?
Oh my God, I couldn't run this by myself, not at this point. So we have about 8 employees now, but we use co-packers for the toothpaste, the face care. We have a fulfillment center that does all our fulfillment. We have 2 of them, in fact. And we have an incubator where we do our jarring and labeling and so on. So I have plenty of help. It's the scope of the company is just really shaping up. We are looking to hire probably about 6 more people for this year, by the end of the year. So we are looking to get to about 12 core people who will report, maybe not directly to me, but indirectly. So we're growing. Yeah, people, it's catching on. People loving the product. So. Yeah.
What did it feel like to bring on your first employee and know you had grown to that size that you could bring someone else into the company?
Let me tell you something. That is my weakness. I don't like it. I have had, oh my God, it's been not the most fun thing for me. And so I rely on the expert to help me figure out the right people to hire. I don't want anyone reporting to me. I just, if you can, if you know your job and you're doing it and everything is flowing, you'll never hear from me. That's not what I like at all. So it's the biggest challenge I have in this business. And, at some point you have to take on ownership. And I've had to let people go, it broke my heart because, I want things to work out. But if it isn't working out, you have to say to yourself, okay, look, it's too small for you, to hide behind something else or not getting stuff done. So I don't like that part of the business at all. But I do it, but I don't like it.
So what would you say is maybe like one of the most successful moments that you've had in running this business and something that you're really proud of along this path?
I would say that one of the most successful moments I've had was I had a stink with Shark Tank. I had pitched to them, and when I pitched to them, I realized that I didn't have the products. It wasn't the right time, and I had to kind of let that go. And it was just such oh my God, I was in tears for weeks. And then about a month or so after, I had done all the automation evaluation. So I was ready to put in my big orders, and I had no money. And I went on Facebook and I just kind of write a little post, saying, hey, now my stuff is ready to be purchased, but I have no, I didn't really come out and say I have no money to purchase it. But I kind of say, my son was living with me at the time, and he was telling me, Mom, I can get a car loan for $80,000 and you can't even get a business loan. And I said to him, so I just stuck that on Facebook. I was like, my son can get loan for a car. And everybody missed the point. Basically, they were like, well, he lives with you. They can repossess the car if he doesn't pay, blah, blah, blah. And I got somebody chimed in, and he said, you need an investor. And it was somebody that I did not even report to when I was at IBM. And he was following the business. And about a month or so, we struck a deal where he invested, I don't know if I should say it, but it was $100,000 for 5% equity in the company. And you know what he told me, which is like, this just was, it just made me feel so good. He said, I know your capability. I'm investing in you. Not so much what you're doing, but I'm investing in you because I know you're bright. And so that was probably my best moment because that really changed the direction of the company.
Yeah, full circle moment after what we talked about earlier, that with, family and friends not being the most supportive and being there to find someone that believed in you and knew you would come out on the other end successful with just a little help from, or I guess that's a lot of help, but just some help from someone else and someone in the community. So I guess that really just speaks to the people you have surrounded yourself with in a bit, but also the energy that you exude and give off to the world with how you do business and how you do everything in your life.
Exactly. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, well, Ivy, I have loved hearing about your business and all you're doing with that. I know the first thing I'm doing when I hop off this call is purchasing one. Do you sell in stores or do you only do it online orders?
Yeah, so we had a cute little store. We had a cute little store in the North End, and we closed it right before COVID hit, actually. And that was a brave move. And so we sell online, but we are in we are in Whole Foods in the North Atlantic area in this region. We are in Macy's online store, their gourmet online store. We just set up for Kroger's Marketplace, but they haven't placed their order yet. So, and then so we don't have a store of our own, but I'm toying with the idea of getting into some mall space because I really enjoy the interaction with my customers. I'm looking at a couple of different areas across the country for mall spaces that are opening up because people ran out of the mall due to COVID. But I think it's going to come back, and I think this is an opportunity for me to look into. So, yeah. But right now you can get it online. Yeah.
I know I have to grab one just to try that Jamaican honey and see what it's all about.
Yeah. If you like ginger, the ginger is the best seller.
Okay. Thanks for the tip. So to wrap up here, what is the best or most recent book that you've read?
I read this book called I Am a Girl from Africa. Oh my God, it's Elizabeth. Can't pronounce her last name, to be honest with you. And I like stories that, people see obstacles, but instead of just feeling sorry for themselves, they push it. But anyway, so the book was about her life in Zimbabwe and in those camps or whatever. And UN or some Peace Corps person gave her some porridge, and I'm just giving you a high level. And she remembered it, and she went on to becoming such an inspiration, to working as one of those, people who, give back in a big way. So that book really inspired me.
And who or what is illuminating or inspiring you right now?
You know what? I am really rocking or digging Stacey Abrams. I'm really digging her. Here's why. She lost the race for the governor and she did not give up. She went on to do some phenomenal things, to continue, like a lot of people, when they lose something, they just get discouraged, and she didn't. So I'm really admiring her right now, for what she's doing in politics. And I'm not a political person, but I know that any loss is disappointed, and she could have just balled up and just said, I'm not going to do anything else, but she didn't. And I'm really proud that she continued.
I really love that answer, and that is, she's really inspiring for sure. And what is an organization that you'd like to illuminate?
Oh, you know what? I couldn't even, the one organization that has helped me is Women Business Entrepreneur National Council, WeBank. My chapter is CWE, Center for Women Enterprise. We're in the New England area. And I just really admire that organization. It's filled with women, and they have such great connection and networking. And, they have really changed my business. And I shout them out every chance I get. It's a fee to be a member, but it's well worth it. And it's not that much when when you're making some money, but I really like that organization. So I want to just give WeBank a shout out, CWE chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And to close it out here, what is your one message to send to the world?
Okay, this one I thought about. All right, so there's a quote, and this is not me, so I'm either paraphrasing because I don't remember the quote for verbatim, but it goes like this: like hardship often prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destiny. I think that I'm an African American woman, a Black woman, and I think that we have endured, Black people, especially Black women, have endured plenty of hardship. And so I think I am well prepared for my extraordinary destiny. And that's the message I want to send to the world. I'm being a little selfish, but yeah, I think that, when you go through a lot and endured a lot, you should just take in all of the, what your destiny brings to you, especially if it's a great one, and you should just share that.
Thank you, Ivy, for coming on the podcast today, and a big thank you to all of you who listened to my conversation with Ivy. If you want to stay up to date with all that they're doing over at Ivyees Everything Honey, you can find them at ivyees.com. That's IVYEES.com, or at Ivyees on Instagram and Facebook. You can also follow the Illuminate podcast over on Twitter at Illuminate_pod and on Instagram at the Illuminate podcast. We love hearing from the listeners of the show and hearing how they're enjoying the recent episodes. So if you have enjoyed any of the recent episodes, we would really love if you left a rating and review on your favorite podcast player. That is such a great way to help us continue to grow the show. And another great way is if you share about it on social media. Give us a shout out, share about the episode, and make sure to tag us. And last thing, don't forget to check out the other podcasts in the Sandy Boy Productions podcast network. If you want to stay up to date on that, you can follow Sandy Boy Productions on Instagram over at Sandy Boy Productions over there. And the shows in the network are the latest, which is the Urban Pharmacy podcast, which is all about plant-based and healthy living. We have the All Have Another podcast with Lindsay Hine, where she hosts interviews with professional, elite, and everyday runners. And then the Up and Running podcast brings you all the latest news in elite and professional distance running. And lastly, we have the Why Is Everyone Yelling podcast. That one is also hosted by Lindsay Hine. So if you're a parent or helping raise kids or just have kids in your life, that is one to check out because it is all about parenting, from parenting experts to everyday parents. Come on and chat with Lindsay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Ivy Lawson, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.